It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible.
Older than what?
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Believe me, just watch. Don't believe me, just watch.
Taking you over the hump. It's a Wednesday edition of the Sports Rush. I am Brett Rump. Along with Adam Lundy, we've got you connected on our Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. Let's go. Let's do this thing on a Wednesday. We always love to get your text, find out what's on your sports brain. Of course, we're going to be talking plenty of Purdue and IU basketball, also local college basketball. And I'm talking local, like NAIA basketball. We've got some really good teams here in town. Time to give them their fair recognition. And so we'll tell you some of the stories behind St. Francis and Indiana Tech. Also, we got Fort Wayne FC news. They announced their schedule yesterday, and so their head coach, now is he a head coach or is he a manager? Because, you know, in soccer, they have managers, right? Do they have managers? What do they have in soccer? Is he a head coach?
Well, they do have managers in soccer, but according to his X/Twitter page, it does say head coach. So we're going to go with head coach. Head coach
Mike Avery is going to be joining us on the program coming up later in the show. Also, the great Kent Sterling on an Optimism Wednesday joining us in hour number 2. Once again, that Parkview Sports Medicine text line 260-447-8500. Also, be sure you connect with us on X, formerly known as Twitter. I am at Brett Rump Sports. He is at Adam Sports Radio.
You got it.
And also our show at Sports Rush 1380 or the station X, which we also are regularly monitoring during the show at 1380 The Fan. Last night, if you were listening to 1380 The Fan, you were listening to Rob Blackman's call of the Purdue Boilermakers taking on the Michigan State Spartans, not Wolverines, Spartans. And last night, Michigan State dominated the second half, and Michigan State leaves the Breslin Center with a 75-66 home win over the Purdue Boilermakers, handing Purdue their third consecutive loss. That is something that hasn't happened for a long time. Second half, it just seemed like Michigan State had a game plan. They stuck to it, and Purdue couldn't defend it. And it was, well, essentially in the half court, it was the pick and roll lob to the basket, which there was just slow help side defense rotation. In some cases, no help side defensive rotation. I didn't like the way Purdue defended the ball screen, and Michigan State was taking advantage of it. I think Tom Izzo and the Michigan State Spartans expected the exact type of defense they got, and they took advantage. They were prepared for it. But the other thing that Purdue did was live ball turnovers. Last night, Purdue turns the ball over 12 times, which isn't a bad number in and of itself. The problem is that 10 of those turnovers were steals by Michigan State, which meant they were live ball turnovers, and Michigan State just exploded in transition. And it seemed like they scored every time they had any kind of fast break. I don't know if this has fast break points. Yeah, 21 fast break points to Purdue 7 last night. Advantage Michigan State. That's where the game was decided. Lobs at the rim on the pick and roll with no help side defense and transition basketball off Purdue turnovers. And the worst last night was Braden Smith. Smith ended up with 6 turnovers, most of them just bad passes. I mean, he made one sequence in the second half where he had back-to-back. I think it was in the second half. Might have been the first half. But he had back-to-back sequences where he got into the same exact position of the court, middle of the paint, tried to kick it out to the wing, and both times the pass was deflected and stolen, and it led to a transition for Michigan State. Purdue just turned it over too many times, didn't play a clean game, and a lot of times the mistakes that I was seeing last night are, again, symbolic to teams that just need to get some extra rest. I thought Purdue looked tired. Braden Smith, I think he's tired because normally he doesn't make those kind of mistakes. He doesn't make those kind of weak passes, doesn't allow guys to get hands on the balls. I just felt like he played a tired game. I'm sure, having to play a 30-some game college schedule with that heavy beard hanging off his chin, it's probably wearing him down.
Yeah.
I wonder if he did his conditioning when he had that big beard hanging down off his. Got to trim that baby up and take a pound or two off. But he just looks like he's tired, and it's not unusual. You see this with a lot of games right now where you see some poor shooting percentages, some missed open shots, and I just felt like as a group, Purdue didn't have the energy you need to have because you've got to match the home team's energy. And a lot of that home team energy is coming from the crowd, which was fantastic last night at the Breslin Center, as it usually is. But you could hear through the radio or whether you were watching it on Peacock last night. For those of you that don't have Peacock, I know how you feel. For a couple of years, I refused to get Peacock, and then they sent me an offer I couldn't say no to.
Listen, Brett, I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, that's basically what I got. I got Joey in New York calling me. I got an offer for you.
You're going to love it. You can't
You're not going to be able to turn this one down, Romp. And, but really, $20 for the year?
That's good stuff.
The whole year. Paid once, $20, and done for the year with Peacock.
Yeah.
And I've actually gotten my money's worth so far. I've watched like 6-7 games so far on Peacock. But last night, it happened to be on Peacock, and I know how frustrating that can be. I think Ryan was complaining about it last night, our good buddy up in LaGrange. But, no matter what, if you listen to the crowd, they were extremely vocal, energized. They brought some energy to Michigan State. Purdue didn't match the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when you see the team or the opponent getting that extra burst of energy and you just don't have it in the tank, no matter how bad you want to have it, it just isn't there because you've played a long season, not a lot of rest. You look at Purdue's schedule, 5 games over the last 15 days. They've played 3 games over the last 8 days. You're talking about big physical teams like Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and, it just wears a team down.
It does, and we had talked about this during their freshman season for the guards, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer, about these two guards kind of suffering from some of that late season fatigue as they went throughout the Big Ten. And there was kind of some hope that as they, had a couple more seasons in the Big Ten, it wouldn't look as bad at this point in the season. But I feel like, last season, obviously, player of the year, Zach Edey, that kind of took some of the pressure off of them too. But now this year, there's a lot of more reliance on the guard play for Purdue. So I feel like we're seeing them get tired again in games.
Yeah, both ends of the floor, the guards are counted on even more than they were before. And, you look at some of the minutes. Braden Smith is playing 36.5 minutes a game.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a ton of minutes. I mean, the games are 40 minutes long, so he's playing more than 90% of the minutes.
Yeah, no question.
I think he sat out for a couple of minutes, and Purdue didn't look all that great without him on the floor. Then Trey Kaufman-Renn, he's playing over 30 minutes. Now, for a guy to go from like 18 minutes to 30 minutes, you get to a certain point in the season where if you're used to, let's say you're used to 20 minutes over a 20 minutes a game over a 30-game season. Well, how many minutes of basketball are you used to playing? 600 minutes. Now, if all of a sudden you play 30 minutes a game, after 20 games, you're now in overtime from what you're used to.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what we are seeing with guys like Braden Smith, guys like TKR. Now, Braden Smith played a ton of minutes last year. I wouldn't be surprised he played 33, 34 minutes a game a year ago. But it still wears, you hit a wall at some point. And I think when you have games that stack up where you're traveling, you're not getting a lot of rest, you're back and forth, you're right in the middle of your college semester, it just adds up. And I think we're seeing it a little bit with Purdue right now. You try to do everything you can to get them out of the funk as far as game planning, scouting, preparation. And you might even try to give them a little extra rest, but you still have games about every third or fourth day. So there's not a lot of time you can rest. You still have to do some practicing. But I think Purdue looks like they might be a little tired. And I think this rest they've got over the next, 9 days. They play one game over a 9-day stretch, and that one game is the trip down to Bloomington coming up on Sunday. But they've got like 5 days before and 5 days after. So, they have a nice little break in the schedule. It's not like 8-9 days off like Indiana. I mean, we're not even going to remember the names of the Indiana players by the time they get back on the court. But I think for Purdue, I think the rest will do them well. I would imagine Coach Painter is probably giving everybody an extra day off, whether it's back-to-back days, whether it's a day off with a day of film and some skill work. And like Coach Kaufman said last night on the Coaches Show, because I think seeing the same thing with Purdue Fort Wayne, he said the most valuable thing we can do right now is not go out and work hard or on drills or scrimmage. What we need now is rest. And so we've planned the week to try to make the most out of the time we have on the court, but limit the time, shorten up the practices, and spend more time on film. Because not only is the team physically fatigued at this point in the year, you've been through 26, 27 scouts. And let me tell you, every scout is like taking a final exam. As detailed as those coaches put together those reports on the other players, all their tendencies, all of the out-of-bounds plays, whether it's sideline out of bounds, baseline out of bounds, you learn all their inbounds plays, you learn the personnel, you learn offensive sets, and all this stuff is learned over the course of a 24-hour period. So it's a crash course, and you're taking a new test like every 3 days. So add the mental aspect of it, of being prepared to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one of our listeners weighing in on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. They bring up a good point that this season in the Big Ten included a lot more flying across the country with the inclusion of the West Coast team, so also add more airline travel for the teams as well.
When did Purdue make their West Coast trip?
I believe it was earlier in the season. They were at Washington and at Oregon. I'll check the dates on that here.
I wonder what their record is after they made that trip.
Yeah, so their second game was in Oregon on January 18th, so at the end of, or close to the end of last month. Then they've come back. Since that trip to the West Coast, they've gone 4-4.
That's not what they had been before that.
No. Definitely not.
And see, that was the thing I pointed out with Purdue Fort Wayne is look at the record after they had a double overtime game, where all of a sudden these guys that have already been gassed and been putting in the regular routine, now all of a sudden they have to play 45, 46, 47 minutes of a basketball game. And sometimes that's hard to recover from.
Sure.
And I think, that West Coast trip, back forth, and then you don't get a week off afterwards. Although Purdue did get like 5 days after they got back from Oregon, didn't they?
I'll check here for you.
I'm trying to remember their schedule, but anyway, Purdue falls last night, 75-66 to the Michigan State Spartans. Up next for the Boilermakers, a Sunday date in Bloomington against Mike Woodson's Indiana Hoosiers.
All right, what I can tell you is their second game out on the West Coast was against Oregon. It was on January 18th. And then they came back and played at Mackey Arena on the 21st. That was the loss to the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Okay, so that was only 2 days of rest and playing again.
Yep.
See, case in point, I rest my case. That trip does take something out of you. And if that's the first trip of the year, you probably never notice it. Or if it's, because somebody's going to say, what about all the guys that go to Maui? Okay, that's back in November, where you've only gone 3 or 4 games into your season. And, yeah, you play 3 games in 4 days, or maybe even 3 games in 3 days. Maui's schedule's pretty condensed, but you often have 5 or 6 days after, and it's very early in the season, where you've got plenty of time to kind of recoup and re-energize, and you've got a full tank of gas, basically, when you go into that. We're talking about what happens in February when you really do hit the dog days of the season. 260-447-8500, the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. 8500. Let's find out what else is happening in the world of sports today. It's today's top headlines with Adam Lundy.
All right, thanks, Brett. Well, the NFL today informed teams that the 2025 per-team salary cap will fall in the range of $277.5 million to $281.5 million, way up from last year's $255.4 million.
That's like adding a whole nother player.
Yeah, for the Indianapolis Colts, this takes their salary cap space from about $28.2 million up to $35.24 million. The Colts still don't have a whole lot of flexibility with this number to be competitive in the free agent market, as they currently have the 18th most cap space in the NFL. However, they could create another $30.7 million by parting ways with inflated contracts such as Samson Ebukam, Braden Smith, and Raekwon Davis.
Isn't that weird? There's a Braden Smith on the Colts, too.
Yeah.
We just talked about Braden Smith. No wonder the guy's so dang tired.
He's taking snaps for the Colts.
You were talking about physical play. The guy's playing right tackle for the Indianapolis Colts in the offseason.
How does he do it? Other NFL news today, Detroit Lions wideout Jamison Williams will not face discipline from the NFL for carrying an unlicensed gun, with the league spokesman confirming to media today that the matter is closed.
It explains why Braden Smith of the Colts also needed that personal time there late in the season. He apparently had to take some time off to go play for the Boilermakers again.
You learn something new.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Williams did not have a concealed pistol license to carry the gun at the time of his arrest, but obtained one later, and Wayne County prosecutors declined to charge Williams last year.
I'll shut up and get out of the way.
Yes, please do. No. One more story for you here today, Brett.
That story was done when I was jumping in. I didn't realize I was cutting right in the middle of your story.
It happens. Within the SEC and Big Ten, momentum is building to further expand the playoff to 14 or 16 teams, assign multiple automatic qualifiers per league, as many as 4 each for themselves, and finalize a scheduling arrangement together that may fetch millions in additional revenue from TV partners, sources told Yahoo Sports. Final decisions are expected in the coming weeks. SEC and Big Ten athletic directors will meet Wednesday in New Orleans for the second time in the last 5 months. And those are your top stories today, Brett.
Some days when you walk in, of course, to the studio, you're a little extra pumped up because you just know you've got a show that's a winner.
Yeah.
You know, some days you come in and you think, I don't know if I'm fully prepared. We'll have to see how this next 2 hours goes, and then I'll give you a grade on how the show ended up. Today, pumped up because it's a big show. We get to talk Fort Wayne FC with head coach Mike Avery. That comes up in about 15 minutes, hour number 2. One of our favorite guests, or if he's on the phone line, our favorite guest, Kent Sterling from Indianapolis, and KentSterling.com will join us. And, of course, you are always connected with your thoughts, comments, questions, and suggestions on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line 260-447-8500. Coming up on the other side of the break, we talk local NAIA basketball. They're at it tonight. We'll tell you their status. How are they doing so far this year? And what's next for USF and Indiana Tech? That comes up next here on the Sports Rush, 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Mastodons return to action after a bit of a break with their bye week this week. It'll be Friday night at the Gate Center for senior night. Be prepared for that to take a little while. Got a pretty good group of seniors, although a couple of guys that would have been part of the senior class were given another year of eligibility. And I believe they're going to take advantage of that. I guess we'll find out on Friday.
Yeah, who gets the honors and
who's leaving us? Who's sticking around?
Yeah.
Somebody, yeah. For the last 4 years, senior day's been very odd because you recognize your seniors, and then the next year they're all back again. You know, it's like because of that extra year of COVID.
Yep, definitely odd time.
Yeah, so it's like you recognize them, then they don't leave. It's like, what are you doing back? Now what do? Do we do another senior night for 50-year seniors?
Yes.
But anyway, we'll have senior night, and it'll be Oakland, last year's NCAA tournament Cinderella, that will be in town, and it's huge game. If you look at the standings in the Horizon League, that is Friday night at the Gate Center. We'll have coverage 6:45, 7 o'clock will be the tip. And then after the Mastodons game, it is the high school basketball postgame show presented by Parkview Sports Medicine live from the Canterbury Pizza Hut. I'd invite you to come out and join us, but there really isn't a whole lot of room for you.
It's one of those newer ones, huh?
Yeah, if you come in and stand at the counter, you can hang out with us in the show for a while, but it's one of those it's primarily drive-through. And they do have a counter, but their waiting room is like 2 little tables and 4 chairs, and we'll probably be sitting in those. So
it's more of a stop by and say hello and grab a pizza as opposed to just sit for the whole show.
Buy it off the app and pick it up on your way home type of place.
But say hi if you want to. We would love to see you out there.
Yeah, if you honk when you go by, we'll know that's you. But we'll be out there until 10:30 after the Mastodons game with all the area boys scores from Friday night. We'll also preview semi-state, where we've got multiple teams that are going to be taking place in semi-state action. Norwell and Columbia City, both in the 3A semi-state at Huntington. And we will be there for all of the action. Starts at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, all part of the Parkview Sports Medicine high school basketball games of the week. And, of course, if they return for the championship, be sure to tune in on Saturday night. Well, we were talking about local basketball and just how great it is. Now, we can break down Purdue-Fort Wayne pretty well because of my association with calling the men's games and following the women's games closely because of the coach's show. But how about the job being done this year at St. Francis and Indiana Tech?
Yeah, some absolutely
got great quality basketball.
Fantastic hoops, man.
USF men, 17-9 on the year. They're 10-6 in their league play tonight. They've got a real challenge because they have to travel to number 6 ranked Grace.
Oh, yeah.
That's also where the USF women will be because in NAIA you play women's, men's double headers in your conference play. And so the women, who are currently ranked number 3 in the country, 23-3. They are 13-3 in the league. And here's what's amazing. They don't have perhaps the best women's team in NAIA in our city.
Crazy.
That honor may be bestowed upon Indiana Tech, who's 22-4, but they're 17-1 in the league, and they have won their last 14 straight games.
Oh, man. I don't know, because looks like these two teams played earlier. I'm sure the Cougars fans are going to say, hey, we beat Indiana Tech earlier this season, 65-53.
Okay, can I just interject here for a moment?
Let's interject.
Indiana Tech, early in the year, it took them a little while to get kind of the wheels in motion, but right now they're playing great basketball, and I think if they met right now, it might be tough for St. Francis to do it again.
I wish they played again.
I think it'd be a heck of a game, but I think it would be tough.
That'd be fun.
By the way, I got one little note to add to this because it's on my conscience. Indiana Tech women's basketball and Purdue Fort Wayne women's basketball have something in common. Do you know what that is?
Is it the same record?
In a way, they have the same home record. Both teams have lost just one time at home all year.
Wow.
And in both cases, I did my only game for that respective team.
You are not allowed.
I am some bad mojo, man. The only game that I have called in any way, shape, or form for women's basketball at Purdue Fort Wayne was the game when John was on the road covering for me, and I covered for John with the TV side. And it's the only home loss now for Purdue Fort Wayne, and I thank Maria for not bringing that up during the coach's show because I already feel bad enough about it. It's always the announcer's fault. But then also at Indiana Tech, early this year, they called me like the day before the game or it was like, we're going to need a PA guy. Are you going to be available? And I thought, I don't have anything going on. I'll go ahead and go out there and do PA for them. And it turns out they lost that day, and they have not lost another home game all year long.
I don't think you're allowed to call any women's basketball.
Hey, St. Francis, I'm sure that puts me high on your list.
Call them up.
Golly, I'm going to go call 2 of our local girls teams in high school basketball. If they both lose this Saturday, I quit women's basketball for the rest of the year.
Yeah, you got to get out of there. But,
wow.
I have a lot of faith in our area teams on Saturday.
I do. We're going to break those games down coming up later in the show and give you some of the details. But I will tell you, I've started my prep. I've done some research on Delta and Highland, the 2 opponents for Norwell and Columbia City, respectively. And I think there's a lot of reason to have optimism that the championship game may be an all-NE8 battle on Saturday night at an NE8 school.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, definitely would love to see both teams advance for the final at 8 p.m. on Saturday.
But yeah, the game 10 o'clock is Norwell versus Delta, and at noon it's Columbia City taking on Highland out of the northwest corner of the state.
Yep, team's already making it down to Huntington North this afternoon to get some practice down there at that gymnasium. So, no, they're getting ready already, and good luck on Saturday.
Is that really necessary to get a practice in?
Those sight lines, man.
Oh, come on.
Gotta get those gym sight lines.
Yeah, like
you know me, those shooters, you gotta get that used to that net placement.
So if you go in, you have your practice, and you miss a bunch of shots, does that mean on Saturday you're not shooting?
Yeah, I'm screwed.
I don't know what the difference. Like Lucas Oil Stadium for a state championship game when you're playing on a turf surface, a different turf surface, and there's, a lot of extra space as far as the peripheral.
Yeah.
It's not that much different in high school basketball. And Norwell and Columbia City, they both play there every other year because of the conference affiliation. So
they're pretty familiar with Huntington North, but hey.
Lucky I'm not their AD. I'd say, why? Why? Why do you need a bus to go to Huntington North and practice?
I don't know. But like I said, good luck to both teams on Saturday. Hope the practice
I feel
helps.
like the SNL skit from Saturday, Debbie Downer. Yeah, but they might get hurt.
Stop it.
Playing on a different court. 260-447-8500, the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. By the way, Indiana Tech is in action tonight, both men and women. They're also on the road. They head up to Ann Arbor, Michigan. They'll be taking on Concordia. And again, USF men and women, they're in Warsaw to take on Grace, or is that Winona Lake officially?
Ooh.
I think it's actually officially Winona Lake, Indiana.
I can confirm it's going to be at the Manahan Orthopedic Capital Center in Winona Lake.
All right, so what else do we have coming up? Tin Caps made an announcement we've got to tell you about because happening Friday morning, a special event out at Parkview Field as we kind of count down toward the Tin Cap season. Also, IU and Purdue have announced non-conference opponents for next year. And we will talk about who's on the schedule for both IU and Purdue with big-time non-conference games being scheduled for next season. It is a busy, packed Wednesday edition of the Sports Rush. We're going to be talking to the Fort Wayne FC head coach Mike Avery coming up next. Also, hour number 2, Kent Sterling from KentSterling.com. It's a Wednesday edition of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Welcome back to the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump, hanging with Adam Lundy on this hump day. Once again, if you got any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can always fire away on our Parkview Sports Medicine text line at 260-447-8500. That's 260-447-8500. You notice we've been talking over the last week, a lot of Tin Caps, a lot of Fort Wayne FC. Why? Because we hate this cold weather. We're ready for it to be summertime weather. And so we talk summer sports, right? And there's news. Yesterday we found out the schedule, or in the last couple of days, we found out the schedule for Fort Wayne FC. And it's a great fan-friendly, if I can say it, fan-friendly schedule, because I notice a lot of Saturdays. There's a couple of Sundays mixed in, and really a kind of a full slate of home games. I think they've got 9 out of their 15 games will be played at home. Of course, those still being played at St. Francis. But let's talk about the season that's coming up ahead, about the schedule, about the league and division with the head coach who's joining us, Mike Avery. He's become a familiar name here in Fort Wayne. Is this 3 years now? I've lost track of time, Mike. How many years has it been?
Yeah, surprisingly, it's been 5 years.
Oh, my.
But,
see, I told you I lose track.
The first year, COVID won that season, so we didn't actually play. But it's been 4 seasons out on the field over the summers, and time flies, man.
Absolutely. And just curious, at what point when the season ends, or let's go back to like last summer, At what point does the process of starting this season, maybe it's roster assembly, I don't know if there's any control over scheduling, but what is the process for you? Is there scouting? Is it all about getting a hold of players? What's the process to start roster construction?
Yeah, it starts essentially right away. I think we ended the last week of July last summer, and then the college soccer season starts in the middle of August. And so I spend the fall traveling, watching as much. I probably watch more college soccer than any person should, trying to identify players that might be a good fit for us. And so I spend those months in August, September, October, and even into November putting together a player pool. And then over the last 2 months, and right now, right at the tail end of that process of just trying to say, okay, here's the 4 or 5 players that we like at each position, which 2 or 3 we're going to end up with. And we're right now about probably 95% done with the roster.
When you go out and look for players, what are you looking at? In basketball and some sports, it seems like chemistry is a very important ingredient in assembling a good roster that plays well together, that has a cohesiveness. How much can you use that and look at chemistry and character as far as trying to assemble a roster?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because it's such an important part of it. It's kind of the art of it as opposed to the science of it. Look, I can go and watch a game and in probably about 30 seconds tell you who the talented players are. That jumps right out at you, and it's really easy to see. And what we need to do is apply a couple of other layers to our process because we're trying to bring people in that want to play for the clubs, that want to represent the community. We've got an interesting and special project going on. And so just like a job interview, I suppose, we just do as much research as we can. And, I coached in college for 30 years, and so all of these college coaches are friends of mine. And we're just trying to do screening and background because at the end of the day, being a good player isn't enough. You've got to come in and play for a team that's competitive and wants to win, but also is trying to grow. And you've got to sometimes put your ego aside when you're in an environment like this and be a team-first guy. And so we do the best that we can to try and suss some of that stuff out because our success ultimately is going to be dependent on those kind of intangible factors.
Do you ever have open tryouts? Are there ever roster spots that you can actually have a tryout for, or is the roster generally filled through direct contact and through agents?
Yeah, when we first started, we did open tryouts, and with some varied levels of success. They were great publicity, and they were great to connect a lot of people. But as we've gotten a little bit more specific with our roster build, the last couple of years we haven't had to have an open tryout. Probably just a better use of our time. And really, a lot of this process is going on like you opened with in the winter time. And so it's really hard to see them play when it's, I'm looking outside my window in Valparaiso right now. It's snow on the ground. It's hard to watch people play, right? So we've been able to fill the roster in other ways.
Do you have any for the guys that do sign up? Is there any kind of preseason camp with them, or do you just come in, start practice, and get right at it?
It's the hardest thing with this league probably is that we don't have any kind of preseason together. I think we'll have this year. I think the guys will report around the 5th or 6th of May if they're able to, and I say if they're able to because a lot of them are coming out of universities that get out of school at different times in May. So some of them might even come later than that. And then we play a game on the 11th. So you have less than a week to kind of get ready and play. And the first few weeks are actually kind of funny in a way if you want to keep your sense of humor about it because you're literally sometimes saying, hey, everybody, this is so-and-so. He's going to be starting it right back for us today. Let's go. We try and figure it out as we go in the early part of the season.
Ideally, is soccer intended to be played on a natural grass surface? Is it different at a football stadium that's got artificial turf?
Yeah, I think when you look around the world, most of the top levels will play the game on a natural grass surface, and ideally that would be the case. But, look, we live in a part of the country where it's hard to keep natural grass surfaces playable all year round. And so, you get used to playing on the artificial surfaces. I don't like, personally, the American football lines on the field are sometimes hard to watch the game. But it's kind of, that's the game at our level in this country right now. soon we'll have our own stadium, and we won't have those football lines to contend with, even though it will be an artificial surface. We're moving in the right direction for sure.
Well, that was one of my questions, what the surface was going to be, and if there was any kind of an adjustment for some of the players that you're bringing in that have maybe not played on an artificial surface. How common is that for some of the guys like college soccer? Is because so many of them in some of the better programs have their own field where it might be grass. Is it an adjustment for a soccer guy to get used to the artificial
surface? It's an adjustment, but it's hard to find a player that hasn't at least trained on an artificial surface. I mean, it's such a common surface now, and they're all over the place and really all over the world. And the maintenance on them is so much easier. And so I don't think it's as big of an adjustment as people might want to make it out to be. I think in a perfect world, if I was choosing as a purist, we would play on a grass field, but an artificial one is better than a bad grass field. And so if we can, we'll do the best that we can, and we'll be very fortunate to have a nice surface, I'm sure. I'm
a baseball guy, Mike. You got to realize the difference between grass and artificial surface is like playing on concrete versus playing on the beach. I mean, it's a huge difference for us baseball infielders.
Yeah, the game gets faster and bouncier. But there's really not much you can do about it except for play where they have you play, right? And we're really fortunate. I mean, Bishop Jarcy is a wonderful stadium. They've been a great home to us. We'll get a new stadium eventually, and we're looking forward to that.
What's it like at the USL 2 level? Is there a nucleus of players that return year after year, or is it a complete rebuild of the roster?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mix. I was just looking at our projected roster before I got on the call, and I think we have a roster size. We'll have somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 26 players, and I think 10 of them have played with us in the past. And so that's pretty common. The hope is in some ways that they're not back with you for a second year, because that means they've moved up and onward in their own careers. And so, for right now at this USL 2 level, there's a pretty high turnover in the rosters.
How much are you able to follow? Because I'm not familiar with how much rosters are printed, if there's a website where they talk about the new signings, or is it something where, like, what your roster is going to be, but can you be prepared or have some type of projection of what the opponents in your division are going to be like based on what players they've snagged? Do you see that information, or do you just have to wait and find out who's out there on the pitch once the season starts?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, I'll see, I'm not out looking for it necessarily, but you'll see, social media announcements of players when they've signed with new teams. And before the season starts, we'll be able to see the other team's roster, and we'll prepare the best we can from a scouting standpoint. But the reality of this league also is that most teams, we're a little different. Most teams will sign a large roster, like maybe even twice as many players as we have. So you'll see 40 to 50 names on a roster sheet. You're not sure which 11 you're going to play against on a given day. And so there's a little bit of, you just kind of got to worry about yourself in the preparation and not worry so much about who the opponent is, and hopefully you put your influence on the game and not the other way around.
You brought it up earlier, and I want to ask you on a follow-up, that new stadium, nothing this year. Is it hopeful for next year?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to speak out of turn on the exact timeline. I know they'll start soon in terms of the building process, and it goes pretty quickly, I think, and so we won't have it for this coming summer season, but we're hoping maybe by the next one we will.
I know this is probably not the question to ask you as the coach. It's probably the least of your concerns, but as far as getting tickets, do you know where tickets are available?
Absolutely, yeah. You can go to our website, fortwaynefc.com. There's a link there to the schedule, to season ticket opportunities, and all of the announcement and news about the club. pretty easy.
And tickets are going to be going on sale 10 a.m. March 26th. See, I cheated. I just asked you the question, even though I knew the answer. I have it right in front of me. But just wanted to see if the coach had all the notes well prepared for our talk. But
not my first rodeo, my friend. I have it pulled up right here on my computer.
And you know what's coming. March 26th is the date that single game tickets will be going on sale. And again, you'll probably want to bookmark FortWayneFC.com and keep up with the season. It's going to be coming up quick. May 11th, it all gets started. Hey, it's always great talking to you, Mike. Appreciate the time, and I'm sure we'll talk again.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Mike Avery joining us here on the Sports Rush, head coach of the Fort Wayne FC, Fort Wayne Football Club.
Yeah, very, very fun, and it's something that's continuing to grow here in the Fort, so good luck to them in their upcoming season.
One thing that confused me about the schedule, you've got King's Hammer, but there's two King's Hammer, and what's the deal with King's Hammer? Is there some significance of King's Hammer that they've got two different King's Hammer teams? I have no idea what that means. Somebody please educate me. I didn't want to sound stupid and ask Mike the question, because then if he didn't have the answer, then we'd both be kind of SOL.
I'll see what I can figure out.
But Fort Wayne FC has a friendly against Sueño FC.
All right, Sueño.
And I have no idea who that is.
Hey, come on. You're not a huge Sueño fan?
No, I have not followed them, and I do not own their jersey.
So there's a King's Hammer FC. There's one from Cincinnati, and then there's one from Columbus. So there's a King's Hammer FC.
But wait a minute. You're not. That was the question. The question was, why are there two of them in two different cities? What's the significance of King's Hammer? Is that a sponsor? Is that I don't know what it is. Why it's King's Hammer and then parentheses Columbus, King's Hammer, parentheses Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's like, can we have Fort Wayne FC in Warsaw? I mean, what's the deal?
The club was founded in 2013 through the merger of King's Soccer Academy with Hammer FC.
There you go. See, if you Google enough, Adam will find it.
I'll find it one day.
You're the Google master. All right, so what else have we got going on? Oh, the Tin Caps breakfast.
Yeah.
Which
I don't know if we have the printout for that.
Well, then I'll have to talk about it later. That was announced, I think, yesterday, wasn't it? Was it yesterday or the day before? We got the information about the Tin Caps having their VIP celebration coming up Friday morning. Yeah. And they're inviting fans to come out, have breakfast, and perhaps buy their VIP tickets. And it's really pretty cool. Like if your kids or you or your parents are big fans of any of the special visitors coming to Parkview Field this summer, you can get VIP tickets, which often have special seating, VIP opportunities where you can meet and greet some of the celebrities or celebrity characters that are going to be at Parkview Field. But I imagine they've got all the details at tincaps.com. We have them, too, just don't have them printed. So I'm just going off memory of reading the email announcement.
Yeah, it's going to be on Friday morning from 8 to 10 a.m. inside the ballpark's suite level lounge.
They got bacon?
They got it.
Bacon.
Eggs.
But do they have bacon?
That's what you're there for?
Gotta have some
bacon?
Gotta have some. Actually, I'm a sausage guy.
Ooh.
Most people, I think, like bacon over sausage.
Bacon or sausage? Let us know. 260-447-8500.
I'm a sausage guy.
Ooh, if I had to choose, I don't know. I probably would go bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like you obviously get more meat when you get sausage.
See, I'll have bacon like on BLTs or on my subs. I sometimes like bacon, or even on my pizza, sometimes I'll have a little bacon as a side. But
like if you're getting a breakfast sandwich, if you get a sausage patty versus a couple slices of bacon, you feel like you're getting a more substantial sandwich if it's a sausage patty.
Yeah, unless you get the sausage, bacon, and egg sandwich.
Our guy Whiskers is going for bacon. He texted in on the text line.
You know Whiskers would go for bacon.
Dude, do pigs have whiskers? I don't know.
Does it matter? We're talking, where's the sausage come from?
It always matters.
It comes from the same dang pig.
It always matters if it has whiskers or not when it comes to this.
Yeah,
guy.
but you can't go by the whiskers because they're the same animal. Like the guy said on SNL. Bargatze, he said, we will have a name for animals when they are alive and a different name for when they become food.
Hamburger.
And so we've got pigs, and you can have pork, you can have sausage, you can have bacon.
Love it. Love it.
All right, we got to take a break. Enough of this silliness. We've got another hour of the Sports Rush to get you over the hump on a Wednesday. Coming up, Kent Sterling from KentSterling.com. He's going to join us in hour number 2. This is the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM.